जनकपुरी को पुरवासी पूछत ये दोनों कौने सुरवीर। अरे फुलवारी में तो आए अब श्री राज फुलवारी में तो आए अब श्री रघुवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए कोमल केशरी कोमल केशरी श्याम गौर तब भाटा तो कोमल केशरी देखत फुलवारी में तो आए अब श्री रघुवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए उतरत देखे जनक नंदनी इत देखे रघुवीर। उतरत देखे जनक फुलवारी में तो आए अब श्री रघुवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए अब श्री फुलवारी में तो आए श्री रघुवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए श्री रघुवीर। बारह प्रेम अजक सीता के कब मिले हैं रघुवीर। बारह प्रेम अरक सीता के कब मिलेंगे रघुवीर। तुलसीदास भाजो भगवाना तुलसीदास तुलसी तुलसी तुलसीदास भालो भगवाना सब सखी गए हो नरवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए श्री रघुवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए श्री रघुवीर। श्री रघुवीर श्री रघुवीर श्री रघुवीर राम श्री रघुवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए श्री रघुवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए श्री रघुवीर। फुलवारी में तो आए श्री रघुवीर। श्री ए फुलवारी में तो आए अब श्री रघुबीर ए फुलवारी में तो आए अब श्री रघुबीर। थैंक यू।
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, another round of applause. Thank you so much. Pleasant good evening, everyone. If you're seeing me for the first time, I'd just like to say hello, thank you, and welcome to our event this evening. My name is Yasha Hanoomansingh. I am the elder daughter of Gideon and Primiti, big sister of Zisha, and niece of Uncle Hans. So I'm very happy and honored to be here to help my dad as we move along this evening's proceedings. So it's my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, whom, along with her brother, Nazimul, shared a very special relationship with Uncle Hans. And this evening, she will present two songs which will evoke memories of their cultural affiliation. So ladies and gentlemen, I welcome to the stage Ruby Khan Gupta.
Thank you very much. This song, I would like to dedicate it especially for the deceased Uncle Hans. We had a special bond. And every time I sing the song, Vaishnava Janato, he would always say the meaning of it. He teach me the meaning of the song. He said, a good human being is one who feels the pain of others, one who helps those in misery and does not let pride enter his mind. Thank you.
वैष्णव जन तो तीनी कही जिल पीर पराए जान रे। वैष्णव जन तो तीनी कही जिल पीर पराए जान रे। बर दुखे उपकार करे तोए मन अभिमान न आन रे। वैष्णव जन तो कीनी कही जे पीर पराए जान रे। सत्तो लोग सहुने बंदे निंदा न करे रे। सकल लोग सहुने बंदे निंदा न करे रे। पाँच काज मन निशल राखे। पाँच काज मन निशल राखे। धन धन जननी तेरी रे। वैष्णव जन तो समदृष्टि कृष्ण ज्ञानी पर श्री जी मात रे। समदृष्टि
Thank you. Thank you very much. My next song is Rahi Na Rahi Hum. Every time I sing this song and he's around, Uncle Hans is around, he would always trouble me and say, make sure when you sing Rahi Na Rahi Hum, you say bun cake for me and bun cake for you. Always. I always remember that. So this one is for Uncle Hans again. रही ना रही हम महका करेंगे बन के कली बन के सवा बागे वफा में रही ना रही हम महका करेंगे बन के कली बन के सवा बागे वफा रही न रही हम कोई हमें से क्या है मिलना क्या बिछड़ना नहीं है याद हमको पूछे में दिल की जब से आई सिर्फ दिल की जमी है याद हमको इसी सरजमी पे हम तो रहेंगे बन के कली बन के सबा बागे वफा में रही न रही हम महका करेंगे बन के कली बन के सबा बागे वफा में रही न रही हम कोई हमें से क्या है मिलना क्या बिछड़ना नहीं है याद हमको पूछे में दिल की जब से आई सिर्फ दिल की जमी है याद हमको इसी सरजमी पे तुमसे मिलेंगे बन के कहीं बन के सबा बागे वफा में रही न रही हम महका करेंगे बन के कहीं बन के सबा बागे वफा में रही न रही हम Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ruby. That was wonderful. Now, so many talented sons and daughters of Trinidad and Tobago. Ruby is definitely among that elite group. And if you remember, that last song actually sat on the top of the 610 parade of hits. It was at the top for weeks because it was played by our man of the hour, Uncle Hans, on Melodies of India. So it's lovely, a lovely little full circle moment there. So our next speaker I'm honored to introduce, I feel very proud, as I said, to be here to honor Uncle Hans, who my sister and we used to call him Big Dad, because he always reminded us so much of our dad, but he was the bigger one. So we call him Big Dad. Their language, the way that they speak, their mannerisms, of course their voice. We would play this game where sometimes if Uncle Hans would call or Dad would call, my sister and I would try to figure out, is that Daddy or is that Uncle Hans? We would never know. So they're really two peas in one pod. So I feel very honored to be here to celebrate Uncle Hans' legacy. So our next speaker needs little to no introduction. He is a world-renowned professor of medicine, a globally known and respected vascular surgeon who has had a very, very close relationship with our Uncle Hans. But I will leave him to tell you more. So ladies and gentlemen, Professor Vijay Narayan-Singh.
Mrs. Myrna, Hanoomansingh, Ravi, Kurt, Gideon, Bernadine, and extended family, sincerest condolences. President, members of the NCIC, friends, namaskar. So much has been said in the last 2 weeks about this remarkable, wonderful man. Yet there is so much more to say, so much more to reflect on, so much more to do, and so much more that we can learn from his life. We have heard so much about his dedication to culture, his early radio programs, his early venture into politics, starting a radio station, Divali, Nagar, etc. A lifelong pursuit of Indian culture with no material gain. In fact, often at significant personal expenditure and sacrifice. Something for us to think on. He never spoke about it, but he lived it. In his pursuit of noble, soul-enriching experiences for us all, and the development of this society, personal material gain had no place. He was selflessness incarnate. He always acted for the greater good, for the benefit of us all. Hans had a creative mind that was restless, always seeking new ways of developing his society through culture. He presented radio programs for decades with no monotony, always refreshing to listen to. New stories, each had its own special flavor, its own unique appeal, often rousing both emotion and inspiration. He could tell relevant stories anytime about almost anything. In that slow, measured, rich voice that calls you to listen, he spoke. His journey to Roots Tour of India, initiated some 50 years ago, was truly visionary at that time. Few people had gone to India. It activated in many of us the desire to seek, to know, to experience, and to understand who we really are, where we came from, what makes up the ingredients of our cultural and spiritual DNA. I was a medical student at the time, and I could afford neither the time nor the money to go on that trip. But it planted a seed in my mind, as I'm sure it did in so many of us, to continue to seek and grow and learn about who we are and where we came from. Hans had a charismatic presence. I want to repeat that. Hans had a charismatic presence that was not defined by what he looked like, or the clothes he wore, or the car he drove, or what he possessed materially. His presence was defined by noble thinking, by honesty, by uncompromising truth, by simplicity and humility. It was defined by his impeccable character. I had the education of seeing Hans at very, very difficult times in his life. I call it an education because to see how he managed life's adversities leaves one in wonder. How is he so apparently calm, so calculated, so clear in circumstances that will disturb anyone? He appeared outwardly unruffled, but clearly deep thought, deep strength kept him. His strength of mind and character remained unmistakable and most evident in the few questions he would ask and in the decisions he would take. Hans bore no malice. I have seen him in situations where anger, malice, and vengeance are normal human responses, but not for Hans. He seemed to be guided by a higher force, by a nobler mind, and a supreme maturity that defined him. In facing these several challenges, it may be difficult to determine how Hans would react, but very easy to determine how he will not react. He was a master in knowing when to be silent, when to speak, and what to say. We have so much to learn, not only from what he said, but also from how he conducted himself. Hans had an encyclopedic knowledge of our history, and for the more than 6 decades of his public life, he had an unsurpassed understanding of our society and its peoples. Hans could tell an engrossing story about everything he encountered in his long life. I love listening to his stories. He was engaging, and his narration and the content commanded your attention. Ravi G had told me on quite a few occasions, why don't you go and do some interviews with Hans and record them? For both Ravi G and I knew of his diverse stories and the voluminous information and inspiration they could provide. It is unfortunate that I did not tap into this vast reservoir of knowledge. He is truly irreplaceable and a loss to us all. This treasured gem, however, who lived and walked among us, serves as an inspiration to everyone who knew him. So ideal were his responses, even in adverse situations, that I think a great tribute to him would be for us to consider, when in difficult situations, what would Hans say here? What would Hans do? And we will find good answers in most situations. Farewell, big brother. While we miss you, you live on in all of us. God bless your noble soul. Namaskar.
As a student and teacher of the French language, Hans always had a deep love for the violin. In fact, he would search for and play some of India's greatest violin players on his Gems of India program. Tonight, Sachin Budram from the Jewels of Debe brings the sound of the violin to us, reminiscent of the tremendous talents of Nasalu Ramaya, Dindi Alkanik, Ralph Narain, and so many other outstanding violinists of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sachin Budram.
Thank you so much, Sachin, for that wonderful performance. Another round of applause. Thank you so much. All right, so our next presenter comes from Hindustan, just east of Princestown, but Uncle Hans preferred to call her the angel of Devil's Woodyard because of her insightful understanding of the Hindu scriptures and clarity in presenting the Chaupais and Ramayana verses. Please, everyone, join me in welcoming Chandra Katwaru.
She's coming from Hindustan, so that's a long distance away. But I think so far we're having a wonderful evening, are we not? all because of one man who impacted our lives so very much. I remembered in the early life of Divali Nagar, I was perhaps the main person introducing all the items. And someone said to me, "Boy, listen, I find you're too stiff on the stage. You're like you're reading the news on TV." So I decided, let me change that, and I came on the stage in Chaguanas, and I made a joke. Everybody laughed. And when I was finished and I went backstage, Hans came up to me. He said, "What is this? Have you changed your name to John Agitation?" So I reverted to my old news reading style. Never again to stand on the stage and make a joke. So, Chandra Katwaru is ready to perform.
Namaste, Sitaram, good evening. With all protocols observed, I acknowledge the presence of the bereaved family of our beloved Hans Shambhu Hanoomansingh, President of the National Council of Indian Culture, Mr. Droop Teimal, specially invited guests, Sri Ravi G, members of the clergy, pundits, and all other spiritual leaders, members of the media, and every one of you who have gathered here this afternoon in love, in gratitude, and in remembrance. It is both an honor and a deeply emotional task to stand before you today, to pay tribute to a man whose quiet strength, unwavering humility, and a spiritual devotion left an indelible mark on so many of us. My personal journey with Hans began back in 1985 when I recorded my first cassette, Bhajan Chandra Volume 1, at Sarana Studios. Hans, ever the seeker of soulful expression, purchased a copy at the Windsor Record Shop in Port of Spain. He played that cassette religiously on his radio programs, not for popularity, but because he believed in sharing what was pure and meaningful. That single act was the beginning of a bond rooted in mutual respect and a shared love for devotional art. Hans later reached out to me personally, and I began acquiring all my CDs to give to him. In his own quiet way, he became a custodian for our cultural and spiritual expressions, always eager to preserve and broadcast what was sacred. In 2002, I launched Bhakti Yatra, a one-year spiritual journey that took us across Trinidad, spreading messages of devotion through satsangs. Hans journeyed with us, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. He documented the yatra with such care. He edited and aired the inspirational messages, understanding not only the message, but the heart behind the words. His dedication ensured that these moments reached far beyond the mandirs and halls where they were spoken. Again, in 2006, I conducted a year-long live satsang program, Bhakti Dhara. Hans was with us throughout, supporting our mission through the airwaves, lending his platform, his voice, and his time to ensure these spiritual teachings found their way into the homes and hearts of many. From time to time, I had the pleasure of bringing guests to the studio for live sessions, always to Hans's great delight. He received them with the same warmth and dignity he extended to everyone. Whether it was Sri Prakash Gosai, Pandit Rajan Balgobin, or Sri Sudhir Narayan from Agra, Hans made them feel welcome and respected. And I'm sure Bernadine could attest to this. The studio, under his stewardship, was never just a place of work. It was a sanctum for sharing, reflection, and devotion. Hans's generosity extended well beyond the microphone. I vividly remember how instrumental he was when I needed copies of 2 Hindi hymns to tutor the students of the Princestown Presbyterian School No. 1 for an inter-school competition. Without hesitation, he ensured I exactly had what was needed. This reflected his quiet generosity and unwavering support for culture and education. Whilst Hans was then the president of the National Council of Indian Culture, he also invited my husband and I to be a part of Divali Nagar committee. Though we could not have attended every meeting, we participated when we could, and Hans always made us feel welcome. Never judged, never pressured, simply included. Hans was not merely a broadcaster or a cultural figure. He was a true devotee. I identified with that because he attended many pujas and satsangs at our home and at the Hindustan Shiva Mandir. His presence was never loud or commanding, but it was always felt calm, respectful, present. He brought with him an energy of quiet reverence, and those moments shared in worship and reflection will remain etched in my memory forever. Hans also had the distinct honor of meeting Lord Wahid Ali, member of the House of Lords of the United Kingdom, during one of my programs, Bhakti Sadhana, at the Hindustan Shiva Mandir. It was a memorable and deeply meaningful encounter. Hans was truly pleased to have met with such a distinguished individual, and Lord Ali, in turn, warmly acknowledged Hans's remarkable contributions in the field of media. He commended Hans for his tireless work in preserving and promoting culture and spirituality through broadcasting. This recognition from a global figure was a testament to the quiet yet powerful legacy Hans built throughout his life. Hans Shambhu Hanoomansingh lived a life of service, not through great or grand declarations, but through consistent, devoted action. He amplified the voices of others, preserved the sacred, nurtured the community, and lived in alignment with the divine values he cherished so deeply. To his beloved family, thank you for sharing him with us. To Hans, thank you for your kindness, your friendship, your faith, and your unwavering grace. Before I leave you this evening, my friends, I vividly remember decades ago when Hans invited me to a prayer at the St. Julian Presbyterian Church. It was a prayer service. He came up to me spontaneously and he asked, would you sing a hymn for us? And I said, which hymn? He said, I know that you know that hymn. It's a hymn that we spoke about. The name of that hymn is All the Way My Savior Leads Me. I said, Mr. H, what prompted you to like this particular hymn? He says, Chandra Ji, I reflect on the words from time to time. I want to share these words of the last verse of that song. All the way my Savior leads me, oh, the fullness of his love, perfect rest to me is promised in my Father's house above. When my spirit clothed immortal, wings its flight to realms of day, this my song in endless ages, Jesus led me all the way. This my song in endless ages, Jesus led me all the way. As we bid you farewell today, we do so not with finality, but with reverence, knowing that your spirit lives in every bhajan song, every word aired with care, and in every soul you've quietly touched. Go, Mr. H. May your journey be onward and upward. May your soul be ever at peace. Om Shanti, Om Sadgati. Thank you.
Thank you, Srimati Chandra Katwaru. Okay, so Miss Katwaru is going to now do a song, a piece of a song.
This was his favorite song on that cassette in 1985.
जगत पिता भगवान हमें दो ज्ञान तो ईश्वर प्यारा दुनिया में एक सहारा हे जगत पिता भगवान हमें दो ज्ञान तो दुनिया में एक सहारा।
Thank you, Srimati Chandra Katwaru. Our next speaker is very much well known. He's established, he's one of my favorites. In fact, his wife had a show that I was stuck to the TV always watching, Miss Anita Chandraat Singh, my favorite couple. And so it gives me great pleasure. He's a retired career diplomat whose relationship with Mr. Hanoomansingh goes back to the teacher-student days at St. John's College when they both had a full head of hair. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Chandraat Singh.
Good evening, Namaste, Jai Sri Ram, to this very distinguished audience gathered here to join with Myrna, Ravi, and Kurt, Gideon, and the extended Hanoomansingh family to pay tribute in music and song and words to a man larger than life, whose legacy has touched millions of people around the world with his outstanding, unforgettable voice, his statesmanship, his community service, his visionary leadership. The point in which Hans and I became close is this aspect of his personality, his visionary leadership. So our relationship, Hans and I, go back a very, very long time, many decades. And I'd like to spend some moments to trace a couple of incidents and occasions in both of our lives that brought us together in an atmosphere of creativity. Because Hans was outstanding as a visionary leader in promoting programs and activities all geared towards unity, community harmony, community leadership, and national unity. That, more than anything else, drew my attention to Hans, and our friendship had lasted for such a long time. At one stage of my life, it was impossible not to know and become close to Hans Hanoomansingh. At one stage of my life, I played music with about 15 orchestras in Trinidad and Tobago, and at an early age got involved in community and religious work. So it was impossible not to meet and know Hans because of his own deep involvement in community work and in music on many stages. We shared a very long and cherished relationship, all dedicated toward music and community programs. Hans and I started a couple of initiatives led by him that will always last as inspiration moments for Trinidad and Tobago, especially in the field of culture. I was associated with him with his Journeys to the Root. Hans' Journeys to the Roots was outstanding in the sense that he wanted desperately to connect our people here to the motherland and to try and trace their roots and their heritage. Not an easy task, by all means. Today it's easier to do that. But when Hans blazed the trail, that was a very difficult task. But his journey to the roots will always remain outstanding and memorable. But talking about journeys to the roots and Hans and bridging gaps and bondings, relationships, you see on the stage here the Ashoka plants. When I was in India many years ago, in Hans' typical style of being creative and visionary, he asked me to send plants that were mentioned in the Holy Scriptures, Hindu Scriptures. So I sent a 20-foot container paid for by the NCIC of many of the plants, but there was so much room in the container, I sent mostly Ashoka plants. Today, the landscape in Trinidad and Tobago is rapidly becoming filled with Ashoka trees. Hans' contribution to the environment, to the preservation and propagation of the environment, is evident through the rapid spread of Ashoka trees all over this country. His efforts to bring artists from India to perform in Trinidad and Tobago, when we did not have an Indian Cultural Center here, through NCIC, was yet another visionary activity, another visionary contribution of his to this country in the field of cultural development. Many of our standing artists today benefited from the fact that Hans brought the Paryers, Pradeep Shankar, Niharika Naidu, and several other leading Indian artists to perform and conduct workshops and training programs here in Trinidad and Tobago. But even in that, I could have depended on Hans to be creative in his leadership, because once I told him, we in this country are accustomed to singing a variety of songs based on classical ragas, but maybe our people are not really familiar with the impact of ragas and the fact that each raga is designed or composed to sing at particular hours of the day and night. So why don't we try a morning raga, 5 a.m. raga? And Hans agreed. I thought I was joking with him, but he agreed. So we brought an outstanding singer from India called Mahima Kesava. And sure enough, Hans got people at the Nagar site at 5 a.m. in the morning to listen to a raga composed and appropriate to be sung and listened to at 5 o'clock in the morning. That was Hanoomansingh. Which leads me to Divali Nagar. Again, it was his visionary leadership that began this outstanding landmark program of NCIC, Divali Nagar. Again, for the first Nagar, which we produced under Pandit Parashram Rampasad, I threw out a few ideas to Hans. One was that we get well-known architect Clyde Bacchus to help us to design the cloud flow for the first Divali Nagar. We got Neville Aming, a famous carnival band leader, to help us to design the chariot, the styrofoam-based chariot that brought Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman every evening from the city center to the stage. We got Mahavir Prasad from India, an incredible artist, to also contribute towards that. But here was this multi-ethnicity impact that Hans created throughout his tenure as president of the NCIC. He was happy when I joined the National Carnival Commission as a member of the NCIC. Both Anita and I were foundation members and executive members of NCIC from the very beginning. He was also happy when I decided that we will work with the Ministry of Community Development and Social Welfare, I'm not sure what it was called in those days, to bring young leaders to the NCIC to learn how this voluntary organization functions without any financial benefits to the members, who produce this incredible program and several programs every year. NCIC has become one of the leading NGOs in TNT and worldwide. So Hans and I thought at that time this could be a training ground for future leaders to come and see how to produce massive programs on the basis of voluntary contribution. Another initiative of Hans. His programs were filled of ideas and initiative, but he is always very cool and always very inspiring to those who worked around him. Hans never really got angry and raised his voice. In challenging times, in difficult times, He was always there to inspire and lead the NCIC through this very creative history of programs that the organization has produced. I remember Hans, in moments of his creative energy, agreeing for us to host events at the Nagar that were meant to inspire national unity. So, for the 150th anniversary of Indian arrival in Trinidad and Tobago, a major program produced by the NCIC, Hans was very happy for us, Anita and I, to go around the country and inspire communities to participate in the parade for the 150th anniversary celebrations. So we got schools, non-Hindu schools, Muslim schools, schools of all denominations to come and parade. People of different ethnic groups participated in that. That evoked a column from the Express newspaper praising the NCIC for making a national statement of unity through the 150th anniversary celebration of Indian arrival. I can go on and on, speaking about Hans Hanoomansingh's contribution towards national development in Trinidad and Tobago through his many forums, but especially through NCIC. Here was a Christian, a devout Christian, contributing and uplifting the cultures and religions of all ethnic groups in this country. Hans never had to change from being a devout Christian to devote himself and dedicate himself towards Hindus and Christians and Muslims and everybody else. What a better example for us in this country for national unity than Hans Hanoomansingh. I hope that his spirit and his contribution, what he has done to benefit this country, will last in his legacy forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandraat Singh. You've seen her before earlier on in the program. She's quite well spoken. She is the niece of Mr. Hans Hanoomansingh. She's going to sing praises unto the Lord in the form of Hallelujah, the song Hallelujah. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to welcome on stage Yasha Hanoomansingh. Please put your hands together.
Hello, everyone, again. So this is really my forte. I am a musician. I am an artist. I love music. So it's very fitting for me to make this tribute to my Uncle Hans through song. This was one of his favorite songs that I would sing. And I think it really represents the type of person that he was. It speaks to one of the core values of our nation and our region, which is multiculturalism. Uncle Hans loved the culture of Hinduism, and he loved his Christian background, which he grew up in. And so I would love to sing this song, Hallelujah, for you in his memory.
Secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. strong hand who outdrew you. She tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throat, then she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. 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 Maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love is how to shoot somebody who outdrew you. It's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not someone who's seen the light. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. 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 Thank you.
And it's me again. All right. So, our next speaker, it is truly, truly my honor to introduce. The year when he would have met Uncle Hans first in the flesh would have been 1966. But melodies of India, reverberating through the village of Katwaru, created a first impression that led to a great desire to meet that man behind the voice that captured his heart, then and forever. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to welcome Ravi G.
Jai Shri Ram. You have heard a lot about the big things. Let me first pay my respects to Bhauji and the family. You have heard all the big things, and I'm pleased to talk about little small things. Actually, if anybody is big and they do big things and never did the small things, they didn't have the grace. As a matter of fact, from Katwaru, this was my first time I was campaigning for somebody. When he won the first election for Karani East. I think the name wasn't Karani East in the Dukaran ji pranam, I didn't see it there. As a young Indian villager named Robin, for me, Hans defined what a gentleman looks like. That was a little thing for a little boy in Kaparo. And actually, I always thought he was so much older than me. Gideon was my friend, not Hans. But Hans was just about 3 years older than me. But this village boy, hearing that from the silver screen, see him walk, see him talk, for me he was so much older than me. And he therefore caught the heart of a little boy from Kaparo named Robin. Sometime in the 60s, there was a big famine in Bangladesh. Some of you might remember that. And that was one of the first things that I ever organized in my life, was raising funds to send to Bangladesh. Mind you, I thought Bangladesh was India. So it was a small thing. It was done in Kaparo RC school. But the big man came, Hanoomansingh, and made our little village attempt, which collected pennies and 5 cents. I don't think there was 5 cents. There was shilling and 6 pence and something like that. So he came to that little function and made it big for the people in Kaparo. Hans did the small things too. On my return to Trinidad in 1983, naturally because of Sujata, I joined Divali Nagar, National Council of Indian Culture. Divali Nagar, the word was not coined yet. And there, he coined the word Divali Nagar. And with that, he asked me to be the team director. With that, I served under him for 10 years at the expense of my own organization. And then I left after 10 years. So I had the opportunity, because of him, and then be coming from Kaparo, it was part of my life, to organize a rice land in Mid-Center Mall on pitch. So that was quite a thing to do, and actually it lasted. One thing that caught people's attention at that time, Arti Janki came to cover the preparation. And I made a small little murti of the mandir that we were going to build. And I was all messed up, and I was on the ground, and she took that picture, and it was on the Guardian or Express. And actually, as people tell me, that attracted their attention so much that the people who really turned out to see the garden and the mandir made of dirt in Divali Nagar, in Mid-Center Mall. So he made me do little things, and sent me to the big newspaper. Many people may not remember or probably know that Hans Bhai is the one who named that road Naslu Ramaiya Marg. He did ask me what to write in Hindi for road, and I told him Marg. And the name really is Narsu Ramaiya Marg. Marg means road. So, the little things, and that now that road is a big road, it's so well used, all because Hans likes to do little things. When Divali Nagar hit Trinidad and Tobago, actually the explosion happened all in Canada and America, in South Africa, also in Mauritius. And if I have it correctly, and Chan Ji, who is an international man, he would be able best to say that those places also started to do Diwali Nagar, a kind of thing, and some of them call it Diwali Nagar, and put up places in the different parts, which went on to grow in its own way. So again, Hans, a little thing here became a global issue. Hans also brought someone from Guyana to do the first Ramayana Yagya held on the first Diwali Nagar at Mid-Center Mall, that is Pandit Ripudaman Sharma. And on that score, it was the first parliamentarian to be reading Ramayana for the Caribbean on the Singhasan. The day is sad because just a few days before he passed, I don't know what got into Sujata's head. He told Hans and Bhauji, who were going on to South, that we'll go to the Passage of Asia. Passage of Asia because I don't eat in any other restaurant but there. And we started Bhauji and Hans and the caregiver, and we ate and we chatted. Our belly, no matter how much we ate, wasn't filled. But it's a little thing that Hans did to us on that day, not knowing he was going to do something bigger in 2 or 3 days' time. Hans had a deep sadness. And he spoke to me about it. He felt betrayed. Because the lands of the Diwali Nagar, a part of it, is now in court. And that matter has been hurting Hans. Because I don't know, in later times, when he started to get sick and have to go to Canada, and whenever we spoke, I remember it a little bit, you could see his pain, that he could not get this resolved. I place this before you. We have some very strong Trinidadians here. Our big brother Deus is here with us. served in Parliament a long time. He may be able to help us. But through you, I ask you to raise this issue with everybody you meet. If today means something, if Hands By means something to us, let us take this one little thing and start to talk about it, to raise this issue, to get it resolved. Get back the blasted land to the Nagar that the blasted man built for us. And then I think Hanoomansingh will have a rest in peace. Thank you.
The service of Christ. Let's welcome Isaac Baksh and his group.
Thank you. प्रभु की ध्यान मेरो मन लागो प्रभु की ध्यान प्रेम की तेरी प्रीत निराली प्रेम की तेरी प्रीत निराली तेरी अनोखी शान तेरी अनोखी शान मेरो मन लागो प्रभु की ध्यान प्रभु And that song says, let me meditate on the Lord. His love for you is peculiar, wonderful, and glorious. He gave his life on the cross for your sins. Our next bhajan is entitled Bolo Jai. And it says, say hail together, hail Jesus. Say hail, hail, hail. Your love has such power, it fills my heart. We sing songs of praise for your love. Bolo Jai.
बोलो जय मिलकर जय बोलो जय यीशु की जय बोलो जय मिलकर जय बोलो जय यीशु की जय बोलो जय 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 प्रेम तेरे की हीरी मन में भर दे अपनी प्रीत प्रेम तेरे की हीरी मन में भर दे अपनी प्रीत तेरे प्रेम से गावेगी तेरे प्रेम से गावेगी बोलो जय मिलकर जय बोलो जय यीशु की जय बोलो जय मिलकर जय बोलो जय यीशु की जय बोलो जय 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 तेरी कुदरत की ये शान खुद ही दाता खुद ही प्राण तेरी कुदरत की ये शान खुद ही दाता खुद ही प्राण पूरे कर मन के अरमान बोलो जय मिलकर जय बोलो जय यीशु की जय बोलो जय मिलकर जय बोलो जय यीशु की जय बोलो जय 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 बोलो जय मिलकर जय बोलो जय यीशु की जय बोलो जय मिलकर जय बोलो जय यीशु की जय Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say thank you for being with us thus far for this evening. I am now bestow the honor to introduce our next speaker of the evening. So he's a politician, he's an academic, and he is an international public servant who has shared a very close relationship with our Uncle Hans. Please let us welcome to the podium, as Uncle Hans would say, and my father was very adamant about me saying this, Professor Winston Chandraat Dukaran.
for the Hanoomansingh and Sankar families. The light is out. The gifted golden voice of Hanoomansingh will not be live on the nation's airways. A voice that lifted our spirits and opened insightful dialogues on our nation's journey as he advocated a higher freedom of unity for this and the next generation. At the funeral service earlier this week, the messages of Reverends Adrian Soonarain and Daniel Tiloksing, and that of his devoted brother Gideon, were immaculate and a true expression of truth, as it captured the measure of the man, and was, I hope, a little source of comfort to the deep loss of Myrna, Kurt, Ravi, Anipa, and Bernadine, as well as Rania and Natalia. As it was moving to all of us who were present and those online, it was a remembrance of a dear friend and a true patriot of our nation, who was the son of Joseph and Dorcas Hanoomansingh of Cunupia, Trinidad. It was on a plane, on a trip to Toronto, I really had my first conversation with Hans, whom I had known to be the youngest member of parliament in Trinidad and Tobago. We talked about his days in the Shogunas market, how he became a member of parliament, his role in the independence talks at Marlborough House in London between the Trinidad and Tobago delegation with Eric Williams and Rudranath Kapildev and the British government. We talked about the misgivings of the political party, the Democratic Labour Party, the historical search for identity of our heritage, and the political landscape and challenges in the Caribbean, and so much more. It was a fascinating and enriching conversation from which I became respectful of this man. We all know as Hans. Later on, I was to lament that he was not an ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, for which he was most qualified. I will also be a guest on his radio programs in Port of Spain, San Fernando, and in his home at Valsayn. He was penetrating and polite, with a deep sense of history and a lesson for us in politics. I looked at my recent emails with him, and today I want to share my email correspondence with you. One of his emails was about Roy Nihal in 1981 and what he described as his first Hindu-Christian dialogue. in which he made reference to two young scholars of Hindu and Muslim traditions, Maulana Imran Hussain, Professor Bhattacharya, and Reverend Cyril Paul. And the community in Gasperlo of the Presbyterian Church, headed by Bob Ramrup and Wahid Omar Dean. He talked about how he received from Muhammad Rafi and Sujata's mother contributions for the famine in India, for which he was the marketing leader as a volunteer. In response to a visit by Dinesh Singh, the then Foreign Minister of India, he talked in those emails about Anand Rambachan and the offer which he declined from the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, and in his own words said to me, I wrestled for a long time, a great opportunity, but it meant taking murder and our two young boys in Rome, to Rome, while I roamed the world. Hans, in those emails, said to me after his eulogy, or rather I said to him after his eulogy at Guruji Professor Hari Sankar Adesh funeral not long ago. And this is what I said to him. Hans, I'm listening to you on Zoom. So beautiful, so eloquent, so meaningful, and above all, so inspirational. My sincere congratulations. He talked to me with great pride about Indarjit Bahadur Singh, a Trinidad national who served as India's ambassador to several countries, and which in recent times of his plans to interview Dr. Alan Mackenzie, the distinguished principal of Naparima College, on the suggestion of an old boy, Ramdat Ramkisoon. In my last email from Hans, which he titled, From the 51st State of the United States, while he was in Toronto, saying, imagine, my family and I will have US citizenship without Jack Warder having to propose me, reflecting his wit and humor of his interviews and quotes. But before that, he talked to me about the Pavasi Award, in which he and Dr. Devkinandan Sharma, the previous president of the NCIC, had supported my being so awarded, for which today, for the first time, I say publicly, thank you. On this topic, he said to me, the only award I seek is the release from hospital and to return home and complete the bucket list. But there was a chorus of well-wishers who insist on the diasporic recognition. in total agreement with these well-wishers. I wrote one paragraph as requested by those who were nominating him, and I wish to put that on record. Hanoomansingh is a cultural icon in my country, Trinidad and Tobago. His relentless pursuit of Indian heritage and cultural equality has been the center of the many offices he held. In Parliament, as a young elected member, his award of the Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, from the University of the West Indies, his public commentary over a lifetime of outstanding deeds and leadership in community office, including the National Council for Indian Culture. He's clearly the most outstanding celebrity and respected personality in my country for his impact he has had on the political culture of our nation. It will be an undisputed credit to bestow on him the prestigious Pravasi Award by the Government of India. Which will serve as a genuine inspiration to all of us for his exceptional credentials for this high honor. Today, at this memorial, which is being hosted by our dear friend, Senator Droop Teimal, current president of the NCIC, and at this place, the Divali Nagar, where Sri Bisram Gopie was elected as the first president of the NCIC. It was during the tenure of Hanoomansingh as president then that the handing over ceremony of this site took place with the then Prime Minister, A.N.R. Robinson. At that event, Hans expressed his desire that Divali Nagar will become, and I quote, a permanent presence of the East Indian presence in the Western Hemisphere. I was present on that occasion. I am pleased to be present here today at a time and place to honor Hans' legacy is right. His name was being submitted for the prestigious Pravasi Award from the President of India before he left our earthly shores. It is with deep respect that today I publicly recommend the nomination of Hanoomansingh for the Pravasi Award posthumously. I do so with the humility and politeness with which our friend Hans will be remembered at all times. Thank you.
So we've got a few items of music yet to come to end of the evening. And we've got two eminent citizens to address us before we close. Dr. John Barrett had asked me to speak last this evening. But I was talking with a few people, and they are requesting to hear Dr. Barrett talk about his days in the Parliament with Hans in 1966. I was a little boy, 17 years old at that time. So I too, I am anxious to hear what Dr. John Barrett has to say. A near centenarian. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. John Barrett. Chand, will you, Chandraat Singh, would you please help Dr. Barrett to the microphone? Or you wanted to come, my God, listen, man, this is a young fella. Now, he told me that he has a special performance. And believe me, when John Barrett says that, there will be a special performance. And two beautiful ladies escorting him to the stage. Now that in itself is an impetus. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. John Barrett.
Namaskar and Sitaram to this lovely audience here this evening. It gives me great pleasure to look around and see the faces. Some of those people might not know me, but some of them are close to me. Tonight, I would like to thank the family and Handley and all the children who are here, I think some of them are still here, who was at the funeral which was conducted by the three reverends at the church at Curep Presbyterian. Now, I don't know if all of you who are here tonight was present at the ceremony at the church when we heard all the sermons about my dear friend, Hanoomansingh. So I am just going to take the opportunity to hold this photograph that was presented to those of us who were at the funeral. And some of you who might not have been there and was not able to take part, here I show you a lovely picture of Dr. Hanoomansingh at the church. This evening, we were fortunate to have quite a few prominent speakers on this podium. And when I listened to these speeches, of course, I haven't got one. So I was listening tentatively and trying to tell myself, what will I be speaking about? Because in my mind, I said to myself, the things I was going to talk about Hans, everybody said it already. So it put me in a predicament while I was listening to some of the speeches. I was trying to see what I can say as an extempore speaker. So, who was Hans Hanoomansingh? Most people would know who he was, but then I didn't know who he was at a certain time in my life. So I will take this opportunity to try and start a little conversation with me about how I met Mr. Hans Hanoomansingh. So this was in 1965-66. Some of you might not have been around during that time. Hans was a young man, a young Presbyterian teacher. And his name came up just before the 1966 election. At that time, Dr. Kapildev and I were very close. And Dr. Kapildev confided in me to find out a name that came up to him as a young man who he thinks will be a good person to become a member of Parliament. Now, at that time, as I said, I didn't know much about Hans Hanoomansingh. In fact, I didn't know him at all. So I knew people who lived in Cunupia, and I thought to myself, I will go to Cunupia and speak to my guru in Cunupia, and he was the giant of the Pandits in the area, Pandit Dinanath Tiwari. Most of you would not know who I'm speaking about, but he was one of the most powerful Pandits in Trinidad. In fact, he was a member of the Sanatan Dharma board and so on. And certain things were being discussed. And I went to see him. And I asked him if he knew of a young man in Kunupir, where he also lived, to get some information, because Dr. Kapildev was interested in finding out a little more. Eventually, I got the information that I wanted from my guru. As I said, the deceased Dr. Mr. Pandit Dinanath Tiwari. And I conveyed the message and what I found out about Mr. Hanoomansingh. It was then agreed that Hanoomansingh will be called in for an interview with Dr. Kapildev and a few of us. At that time, I was not a member of Parliament, but I had been Dr. Kapildev's right-hand man in the 6-1 election, where he had the use of one of my houses as his office. So we were very close. We chatted and we discussed, and we found that Hanoomansingh would be an excellent candidate. So this started a brotherhood, I would say, between Hans and myself, because Hans became a member of Caroni East, and I became a member of the now famous Bamboo Settlement. So this is how, when some people say, who was Hans Hanoomansingh? This is the person that we were all talking about tonight. There are some things that we could write and talk about, but there are some of the things that troubled me, or has been troubling me for a while. At the funeral, on my way out, having paid my respects to Hans, a certain person stopped outside and said, Dr. Barrett, I want to ask you a question. So I thought to myself, what can this be? Within the second of him asking me. He says, Dr. Barrett, tell me something. I heard them singing bhajan in the church, but I thought Hans was a Christian. Can you see the query, the little confusion? Here is a teacher, a well-known Presbyterian family. At his funeral, a bhajan was being sung. So I thought to myself, when I had a chance to discuss a few things with him, I deliberately brought the booklet in which the bhajan was sung in the church. And of course, to the surprise of some of the people, they were either in awe or left feeling a bit confused. So the bhajan was Karo Meri Sahai. And this was a bhajan which was, the meaning was very close to my heart, because I remembered that bhajans were sung in the Tunapuna Presbyterian Church. Some of you who might know where that is, it's in Cochrane Street. And at that church, I too had no alternative, but I also attended a CMI school, and so did Hans. So, having heard the bhajan, and I'll let you know that I studied in India for 5 or 6 years. So I was a little in Quran with Hindi. I also learned Hindi when I was 6 or 7 years at Monte Grande, where I lived, from the Pandit Gayadeen, deceased now. And this was an interesting Pandit. He had 2 brothers whose parents came from India, but they were Presbyterians. And the 3 brothers lived in 3 houses, about 2 minutes from where I lived. So I got very close with them. And 2 of the brothers, the biggest 2, Ivan Gadin, who became what he was, but he was in education, but he was in one of the highest positions. And the other brother was the bookkeeper at Orange Grove Estate. But the 3rd and small brother, he started a kutia when I was about 7 or 8. He was a pandit. Again, people wanted to know how this family, one is a pandit, the other one going to church. But there I also studied and learned Hindi for the first time, and so on. So, coming back to the book of the churches in the Curap area, and I can tell you that that bhajan book, in which Hindi bhajans were written, those books were presented by Dr. Morton, his son, which was Harvey Morton, who lived at the manse at the church at Tunapuna. I want you to bear with me because you've heard all about Mr. Hanoomansingh in a way. But I wanted to give you another little side of the history of where Hans came from. When you asked the question, who was Hans Hanoomansingh? And therefore, I'll be trying up who was Hans Hanoomansingh with this little conversation I'm having with you. So the book that was presented to us in the Aramalia Church and was printed. Dr. Morton sent to get a press, a printing press, which was the first printing press of Hindu letters that could be used for the indentured laborers, our great-great-grandfathers or great-grandfathers, as we call them, the Grihastias. And whenever I think of the Grihastias and my own parents, there's so much we can talk about. Time doesn't permit me. But my father was the printer of those bhajan books. So it's not what someone told me that this was done. My father was the printer of the bhajan books. And one of the popular bhajans, like the one we heard in Curab, which I remember as a child, was Isu Masih mere prana bachaya, Isu Masih mere prana bachaya, Isu Masih. I want to thank you for listening to this. So we have tied up where the Church of the Presbyterian religion played a great role amongst those who were considered illiterate, which I took exception to. My forefathers and your forefathers, they were never illiterate. They didn't know Spanish, but because they didn't know Spanish or Latin or French, you couldn't call them illiterate. But they knew their language, they knew the culture of the great rishis and munis, the philosopher which was 6,000 years old, that taught us to read the Ramayana, to read the Bhagavad Gita, to read the Mahabharata. Those of you who have an opportunity to read those books, you would learn a lot about John Morton taught the Presbyterians, and the Presbyterians passed it on to those Grihastias who could not read the English language, but they could have read Hindi, and they became part of our society there. But you know, one of the things that I've kept in my mind that I wasn't too happy about a certain gentleman in an article talked about the Presbyterians. And in that article, he said, they didn't come to teach people. They came to Christianize you, to change you and change your religion. Now, this is a Hindu who has criticized the Presbyterian forefathers who came not to teach, but to convert. So the argument I have had with many people, and these are facts that I know, I think I am maybe older than most of you here. I might look like 60. Thank you very much. But you're wrong. I am 98 years old. And I'm 98 years old because of the life I have lived and the philosophies that I have practiced of the great munis and rishis of 6,000 years ago that has handed down to us. I follow very closely that lifehood. So, the rebuttal that I had with this person with the, I don't want to use the word I want to use, but when he talked about Hindus wanted to be teachers and so on, and John Morton and they and they. When John Morton, some of you might have heard of the name, but his wife, they were Canadians. I'm giving you a little bit of history here tonight because you've heard a lot about the life of Hans Hanoomansingh. But Hans Hanoomansingh is a central figure, like Hanuman, that name Hanuman. Hans was like Hanuman because he was a teacher. And do you know, some of us don't really respect our teachers. But starting from the old thousands of years ago, all our teachers, all our rishis, they were all our gurus. So your guru was the teacher who taught all of us, whichever school you went to. You must also remember those who taught you, those who gave you the knowledge, those who made you who you are. And Hans Hanoomansingh was one of those. So to me, he was not only a teacher, but he was a guru to so many children that he taught at the school where he was. Now, I will be closing just now because I'm sure I've taken up too much of your time. Talking about gurus, and we heard some lovely ladies singing tonight. We heard, oh my gosh, that young man that played the violin, I think he stole, and that wasn't being offered. So many people was talking about cremation many years before this juncture. And again, one of the men who was in the Mahasabha, he went to India. He met Mahatma Gandhi, and they spoke, and they talked about the conditions of the workers of the sugar estate, the manner in which they were treated very horribly, no education, very little to eat, and very little to do after work. So he went to India, saw Gandhi, saw a few others, and eventually came back and reported to the Mahasabha and so on. We were able, after many years, I had piloted a motion asking the government to finalize the cremation and put it on the statute books so that the Hindus can be now sure that their loved ones would be cremated in a way which they would want it to be. You know, some of you would know the story about the first cremation that they had, as done by a gentleman, or for a gentleman, Mr. Kirpilani, of the Kirpilani brothers. This might be history. And the population and the government refused to cremate Mr. Kirpilani. And the Hindu community, some of the people, like Mr. Jang Bahadur Singh, Mr. Mathura, which is Pat Mathura's father, a couple others, they had a delegation and they went to the governor to present their case about cremation. They said, no, they can't have any cremation and so on. After a few days of haggling, a cremation site, remember this, people? Remember this and pass it on to your children. The first cremation was done in the Labas. You know where the Labas is? Those of you where the Labas? They did Mr. Kirpilani's cremation in the Labas because the people in the surrounding area says when you burn somebody, it's going to smell and the odor and the air and all the rest of it, which we know is not true. So the first cremation was done in the Labas to a Hindu. What an insult. What a grave injustice that he could not have done the rites. They could not have done the rites that is associated with doing your cremation. As Hindus, we know there are certain rites that are performed at the cremation site. So eventually we were able to get the cremation act passed. And one of the first persons who came to give me some help to frame the speech that we are going to make was Mr. Hanoomansingh. And he said he was going to be with me, fight with me to make sure that the cremation bill is passed. And that was the Hindu side of Hanoomansingh, who was one of those people who helped me and helped me a great lot to have the cremation bill passed so that today, at the present moment, we were able to get cremation sites built by county councils, not government. We were able to do our burning legally. At one point in the COVID, you could not burn your dead if you were giving permission because you had to seal the lid so you couldn't see your loved ones. And then, of course, I took objection to that. Why can't you see your dead one? And then we came up with the idea, yes, you can see the dead in the coffin during the COVID, but you have the glass in the coffin. These are little things that most people don't know, and your children will never know because you don't know. And I am here tonight to try to pass on some of the things that was never said about tonight's speeches. So let me finally try and hopefully I will try to compete with some of the ladies and the people who sang. So I just scribbled a little something here as I close. And it might be very appropriate if you understand what is being said. You know, as we're going to say goodbye to Mr. Hanoomansingh, I remembered a very old song by KCD. KCD was a Bengali. He was a singer, but he was in the 1901 and all those things. If some of you knew or heard of KCD, and you would like to know who KCD was, you could always find it in the efforts if you put to go through the internet. So forgive me for my voice, which I could never have competed with those singers on the stage. Jao, 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 mere sadhu. Jao, jao, mere sadhu. Raho guru ke sang. Jao, jao, ye mere sadhu. Raho guru ke sang. Jao, jao. Surabad se par aaye ko ek din. Surabad se tak aaye ko ek din. Shanti rahe hum do. Shanti rahe hum log. Surabad se par aaye to ek din. Surabad se kar aaye ek din. Oh, Shanti, Shanti rahe Gadur. So, Sura Pare ek din shanti rahe. Ab phir chhod chale sab koi. Ab phir chalo tum kaho ye kaun hai. Ye kaun hai. Kaun hai bhang. Jao, jao, mere sadhu, raho guru ke sang. Jao, 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 mere sadhu, jao, hands abadi dos. I thank you very much. I'm sure I took longer than I expected, but I hope this evening, the effort that I've put into this, it was like, say, Kachori bina chatani kaise bani. So I mixed up a little bit, here and there, not sticking to the program of speaking specifically about Mr. Hanoomansingh. Thank you very much for listening to me, and may we all wish Bhagwan's blessing. May we wish all the gurus that could be around our friend Hans, let them be with him, and let him be traveling, as we know. He's traveling to go to get his moksha. And when that door is open for him, we all can be assured that he will be accepted to live with his gurus wherever they would want him to be. Thank you very much. I want to thank the ladies for helping me. I see I had two of them. Some of you might be jealous, but when you're handsome, you're handsome.
Thank you, Mr. John Barrett. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce on stage the President of the NCIC, Mr. Droop Teimal.
It will be difficult for me, coming after Dr. John Barrett, to engage your attention. I know it's a bit late. The Hanoomansingh family and the Sangha family, distinguished speakers, our wonderful performing artists, and friends who have gathered here this evening and who have stayed for this memorial service for Hanoomansingh. Namaskar to all. I would not have the honor nor the privilege of working alongside Hans. And my conversations with him would have been brief, and more conversations in passing. But even though brief, they were filled with value. And when I became the president of the NCIC in April of 2023, I felt very strongly within me that I should seek the blessings of Hanoomansingh, for the responsibility that I was asked to take on, because an organization with such a history and such longevity, I felt really and truly to seek his blessings. So I called him up and I visited his home. He gladly received me. And to receive his blessings actually only took a couple minutes, because he was gracious, magnanimous in endorsing my presidency of the NCIC. And we spoke for, I think, about 3 hours after that. And really and truly, I distinctly remember everything that we discussed for those 3 hours. In fact, I was more a listener, and Hans chose to pour his heart and soul out regarding the National Council of Indian Culture. From the early days to his dreams, his aspirations, his vision, the challenges he had, the many hurdles that he had to face, and some of the things that still, for him, was unresolved, but still full of hope that at the end of the day, the work that had been put into the NCIC, with all of the benefits that it has brought to the nation of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider region and the world, there was still that confidence in him that the NCIC would continue to play a vital role in the cultural and national landscape of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider region. The discussion was filled with wisdom. Someone who has walked the path, not with loud words, but with dignity. Someone who had walked a path not for selfish gains, but through selfless service to a cause that he subscribed, not just only subscribed, that he lived every moment of his life for. Not taking away from family, of course, but it was his passion. It was who Hans Hanoomansingh was. So, following that, we would have kept in touch. And very soon after that, I had proposed to the board of the NCIC that we should institute an annual lecture in honor of Hans. So we came up with the annual Hans Hanoomansingh Distinguished Lecture that was actually scheduled for last year, August. But due to his health and his insistence, he really wanted to be here personally, in person, for that inaugural lecture. And it was shifted twice. And then he finally came to us, he finally arranged everything so that this annual Distinguished Hans Hanoomansingh Lecture would have been held tomorrow. And it's not to be. So it has been shifted, but we definitely will be having the annual Hans Hanoomansingh Distinguished Lecture. Actually, Dr. Valmiki Arjun was our featured speaker to deliver that inaugural lecture. And the topic we had chosen was the emergence of India and its impact on the world, in particular the Gurmitiya countries, for we knew that Hans would have loved listening to that topic. And then, early this year, when we were looking at the 60th anniversary of the NCIC, and we wanted to do something special. So we came up, proposal was made again to the board and readily accepted for a special recognition award program. That was carded for last week, Saturday. And we had to, of course, we had to put it off due to the circumstances. But I had proposed at that in early of this year. You know, the NCIC, Divali Nagar will always remain our flagship event. But in moving forward in a strategic direction, we had decided that there would be several strategic pillars that we would build on the work of the NCIC. And a couple of those pillars, one would be the establishment of two specific institutions. One a heritage center, and one a center for the arts. In a way that we can institutionalize both aspects of the culture, such that the work of the NCIC could be advanced in a broader network, in a global network, as well as fulfilling local and regional needs. So the Heritage Center I had proposed would be named after Dr. Devkinandan Sharma, Dr. Devkinandan Sharma Heritage Center, which actually started in the year 2017. And then I had proposed that there be the Hanoomansingh Center for the Arts as the other institutional pillar of the NCIC. And I'm happy to say that without a moment's hesitation, in fact, I think that's the quickest decision the board ever made since I am president, unanimously agreed with that proposal. For Hans, you all would remember, you have heard from many speakers about his passion for the performing arts as well, and the role he played in getting, so many artists to Trinidad. And some of you remember the NCIC Kala Kendra, which he worked very hard to establish here. So the Center for the Arts is a fitting tribute, in our opinion, for Hans Hanoomansingh and the tremendous contribution that he has made. Now, that announcement of the Hans Hanoomansingh Center for the Arts was going to be made last week when we had scheduled our Service Recognition Award, along with the honor for Dr. Devkinandan Sharma and the Heritage Center. So we are committed to that. We would continue with that. So at the appropriate time, we would be announcing that program when there would be a formal ceremony for the naming of both the institutions here at the NCIC. In closing, it's 180 years we are here through the efforts of our foreparents, our indented foreparents. And we would use many terms: cultural persistence, cultural determination, cultural resistance, cultural continuity, cultural insistence. But the 180 years, if we want to frame it, I mean, just to use a term, it has been a battle. It has been a battle. And it still is. For there are many aspects of culture in Trinidad and Tobago and multiculturalism and the whole cultural policy of this nation of Trinidad and Tobago that still has to be looked at in depth and has to be taken in a direction that is representative, that honors the peoples of Trinidad and Tobago, including our First Peoples. And through that journey, we have seen cultural warriors emerge. Cultural warriors. We place Hanoomansingh as one of our foremost cultural warrior. Thank you.
On behalf of Myrna, Kurt, Ravi, and his family, and our family, I wish to thank the NCIC for so honoring our beloved Hans, and look forward to the day when the nation, in all its embrace, will better understand the nature of the man. We have musical tributes, just a few, to end off this evening's program. It has gone on way beyond what we had anticipated, but so be it. We are honoring a great man. And truth be told, perhaps it would have taken a week to honor him. But I want to introduce Yasha and Zisha, who will come and present for 2.5 to 3 minutes Hans's favorite CH Atma song. Please welcome Yasha and Zisha.
Good evening again, everyone. Once again, my name is Yasha. This is my little sister, Zisha.
Hi, everyone.
You would have seen us along the program. So as our dad said, we would like to pay tribute to our Uncle Hans with one of his favorite CH Atma songs, Tujibina Soni. If you know it, please feel free to sing it with us.
आजा रे ओ सनम बिन सोनी प्रेम डगरिया आजा रे ओ सनम आजा रे ओ सनम याद में चलती जाए जवानी हो ऐसी बनाओ रैन सुहानी याद में चलती जाए जवानी कौन सुने अब दिल की कहानी हो जी हो जी हो जी हो जी हो तुझ बिन सोनी प्रेम डगरिया आजा रे ओ सनम आजा रे ओ सनम आजा रे ओ सनम
Thank you, Yasha and Zisha. Our next performer is one of the most versatile artists on the block, and he has toured the world, and tonight he pays tribute to the late Mr. Hanoomansingh. Closing us off after this artist will be the BVS group's tribute as well. So put your hands together and please welcome Satnarayan Raghu.
Thank you very much. छूकर मेरे मन को छूकर मेरे मन को किया तूने क्या इशारा बदला ये मौसम लग प्यारा जग सारा छूकर मेरे मन को किया तूने क्या इशारा आजा तेरा आंचल ये प्यार से मैं भर दूं, प्यार से मैं भर दूं, खुशियाँ जहाँ मन की लिखता चला जाऊं, लिखता चला जाऊं। मेरे गीतों ने तुझे ढूंढे जग सारा, छूकर मेरे मन को किया तूने क्या इशारा। तुझको है जीवन भर तेरे लिए मैं गाऊं, तेरे लिए मैं गाऊं, गीत तेरे बोलों पे लिखता चला जाऊं, लिखता चला जाऊं। मेरे गीतों ने तुझे ढूंढे जग सारा, छूकर मेरे मन को किया तूने क्या इशारा। बदला ये मौसम लग प्यारा जग सारा, छूकर मेरे मन को किया तूने क्या इशारा।
Thank you very much.
Let me tell you that there are snack boxes available. Before you leave, I was told that you can go to the wing and you can collect your snack boxes. But to bring this event to a close, very fittingly, the Bharatiya Vidya Sansthan has come to present a song written by H.S. Adesh in honor of hands. Please welcome the BVS.
Namaste. बहुत धन्यवाद. Tribute to Dr. Hans Hanoomansingh, composed by Param Gurudev Professor H.S. Adesh on the occasion of our 42nd annual camp, which was held in 2013. Allow me to read the translation. O pride of Trinidad and Tobago, beloved Hans Hanoomansingh, let us call his name with love. Dear Hans Hanoomansingh. Born in Las Lomas, he was nurtured in Trinidad's heartland region. And for our sister Isle Tobago, his fondness and love were legion. Truly the pride of the nation is our dear Hans Hanoomansingh. He is a complete embodiment of the tree of his Indian roots. He nourishes this tree of Bharat, India, to beget new cultural shoots. An indomitable icon of Indian inheritance is our dear Hans Hanoomansingh. He embraces the ideals of Bhagavad Gita and is a supporter of Hindi. He lives the message of Gandhiji and respects the symbolism of ancestral Bindi. Truly, a treasure of integrity is our dear Hans Hanoomansingh. He is a dear beloved servant of the people, and amongst friends, he is indeed the best. He personifies patriotism, and his character is his crown, his crest. Flying the fluttering flag of love is our dear Hans Hanoomansingh. In true sense, he's not only a good Christian, but a good Muslim and Hindu too. For in his eyes, to love and respect every human being, one ought to do. A true human being of universal outlook is our dear Hans Hanoomansingh. Reaching to the heavens on the radio waves, his voice echoes from the earth. May he remain immortal in the history of the beautiful land of his birth. A magnanimous humanitarian indeed, his dear brother, Hans Hanoomansingh. May Hans Hanoomansingh not face any troubles. Remember, this was written in 2013. This was Guruji's expressing his love for his Bhaiji, Hans. May Hans Hanoomansingh not face any troubles, remaining healthy and active. Poet Adish praise, may destiny to you, dear Hans, choicest blessings give. In world history, may Dr. Hans Hanoomansingh for hundreds of years live. Let us listen to this composition of our Guruji, Professor Adish.
Hanooman के, हिंदी के गीता के गांधी उपदेश है, सच्चे आराधक है, पुरखों के देश है, सच्चे आराधक है, पुरखों का देश है, पुरखों का देश है। सद्गुण की खान है हंस हनुमान सिंह, सद्गुण की खान है हंस हनुमान सिंह, 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 देश का गुमान है हंस हनुमान सिंह। जनप्रिय जन सेवक है, मित्रों का मित्र है, जनप्रिय जन सेवक है, मित्रों का मित्र है, देशभक्ति में जीवन उज्ज्वल चरित्र है, देशभक्ति में जीवन उज्ज्वल चरित्र है, उज्ज्वल चरित्र है। प्रेम का निशान है हंस हनुमान सिंह, प्रेम का निशान है हंस हनुमान सिंह, 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 देश का गुमान है हंस हनुमान सिंह। हिंदू है मुस्लिम है अच्छे ईसाई है, हिंदू है मुस्लिम है अच्छे ईसाई है, उनकी नजरों में हर मानव की भाई है, उनकी नजरों से हर मानव की भाई है, मानव की भाई है। सच्चे इंसान है हंस हनुमान सिंह, सच्चे इंसान है हंस हनुमान सिंह, 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 देश का गुमान है हंस हनुमान सिंह। गूंजती है वाणी जिनकी है वो आकाश में, गूंज उठी है वाणी जिनकी वो आकाश में, युग युग तक अमर रहे देश के इतिहास में, युग युग तक अमर रहे देश के इतिहास में, देश के इतिहास में। सचमुच महान है हंस हनुमान सिंह, सचमुच महान है हंस हनुमान सिंह, 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 देश का गुमान है हंस हनुमान सिंह। स्वस्थ रहे सक्रिय
What an honor. What a tribute. What a way to bring this memorial to a close. We've kept the best for last. I would like to thank once again the NCIC for paying Hans this great honor. Let me thank all those who contributed. I wish to publicly thank the Barrett group of companies for providing services at the church on Monday, Bhakti TV for providing coverage worldwide, and all others who've contributed in one way or another. This is not the last we will hear about Hans. His legacy lives on. The last conversation we had when his mind was still brimful of ideas, he was not talking in the context of going anywhere, but he was configuring in his mind how he can achieve this vision of his to have a Caribbean Indo festival here on these grounds. I leave that to Senator Teimal and his team to give some thought. Thank you all very much. Please collect your boxes. Have a safe journey at home, and we shall meet again on another occasion. The BVS wants to present a gift to Mrs. Hanoomansingh and her family. So thank you all and good night.